Oh, what a day when the tables are turned. What a day when the tables are turned. Oh, what a day when the tables are turned. What a day when the tables are turned. What? You mean to tell me crime is down in Shoot 'em Upville? AKA DC? You mean to tell me that the efforts of the National Guard are actually working? Say it ain't so. You mean the National Guard actually being in Washington, D.C. is yielding results? So much so that the mayor now wants to extend this partnership? It's working that good. Let's take a listen.
This is what we think in just a couple of weeks of experience has worked. Having more federal law enforcement officers on the street. We think having more stops that got to illegal guns has helped. We think that there's more accountability in the system, or at least perceived accountability in the system, that is driving down illegal behavior. We know that we have had fewer gun crimes, fewer homicides, and we have experienced an extreme reduction in carjackings.
Duh! I don't know what, this is one time I wish I had a beard so I could do this. I don't know what planet you're living on. Stroking my imaginary beard. We all feel like having more police officers is going to make people more fearful. All these people who are out here talking about I'm so afraid the National Guard is just grabbing people. I don't walk past the National Guard up and down the street, up and down the street, up and down the street. I see people walking up and down the street, passing them. They ain't yucking up nobody on the street. Now, if you are a criminal, if you have a gun, if you're doing something and you're acting suspiciously, you're doing something that catches their eye, that's a totally different thing. But these folks out here who were so pissed off, and I told you guys in the last video that I think a lot of people are sympathizers when it comes to crime. They sympathize with crime, or they're criminals themselves. And in the rare occasion, they're the folks who have had bad interactions with police officers. But more often than not, I don't understand these sympathizers. They're more afraid of the National Guard who are here to serve and protect than they are afraid of the people who are here to hurt them, shoot them, carjack them, armed robbery them, whatever. Y'all ain't afraid of those folks. It has been so peaceful in this city. I tune into my radio again in this short, 3 weeks? Next week would have marked, a month of this? I don't even hear, it feels so damn good. I was listening to the Steve Harvey Morning Show this morning when they break into Renee Nash. They talk about the lottery. How ain't nobody win? I played my number when I was in Dallas a couple of days ago. I win. Because if I didn't win, this channel was a wrap. Just let me let you know right now. But they talk about the lottery. Good stuff. Not who gets shoot up in Shoot 'em Upville. I got to give it to Bowser. I got to tip my hat to her. Because you got some mayors in other cities, we can get to that, who would never admit, hey, this is actually working out. So much so that this woman has an executive order that goes into effect immediately to extend the partnership with the National Guard. Wait. Y'all doing such a good job here. I don't know if I could go back to having this crime every single day, because the citizenry, the residents here, feel so damn good with the T at the end, that we ain't hear about crime every single day. Not to say it's not happening. You have your things happening here or there, but my God, I ain't hear about no shootings, no killings, no children being murdered. Whew. Let me tell you something. I am enjoying this city. I was supposed to post a video last week. I did the video. Edited on the plane. I was heading to Dallas for my birthday. By the way, shout out to all of you who wished me a happy birthday. I didn't do a post or anything on my community page. But Garnett Brown in particular, girl, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything. But I was on my plane editing my video because I had spoken to several police officers after my last video. They had reached out to me through email. I spoke to two of them. And it was just kind of crazy because I thought for sure some of them would have been upset with me. But they were like, nope, reaching out to say that your video was spot on and everything that you said was absolutely correct. One of the officers who I'm going to quote throughout this video, and he said some things that came out in the press conference with Bowser the other day. he was just saying how it's just yielding so many positive results. For all the people who are talking about, being upset that Trump is on the ground or Trump has National guards on the ground, they're seeing so many positive results at the Metropolitan Police Department. It's quiet. He said in the evening shift in particular, usually like they would have like this simulcast and things would be going off saying, look out for this in this area, look out for that. And it's just like quiet, super quiet. Let's take a listen to what Trump had to say. And then we'll just go from there. Because right now, guys, I don't know if you all are aware, but a lot of residents in other cities like Memphis, like Chicago, are begging for the National Guard to come on the ground. They're begging for them. Begging for them. And by the way, before I even go on to this thing from Trump, this interview with Trump, I have to say I was so disappointed to see so many people who are mad at Muriel Bowser and her decision to extend this partnership, this cooperation with the National Guard, that they're now calling her an Uncle Tom and an Aunt Thomasina and just calling her out of her name and a coon and all that stuff. You see how this thing goes? You cannot listen to these people. They're ignorant as hell. These are people who are just toxic. They're nasty. They're vindictive. They like drama. They love chaos. They are masters of chaos. They thrive in chaos. So any move to remove us from that chaos is met with opposition because they just need something to talk about. Just dumb people, I can't reason with these folks. But they've been calling this woman out of her name. And, I'm not the biggest fan, I'm going to tell you, of Muriel Bowser. I'm not. But I really appreciate the fact, if I could tip my hat, and I could tip my hat to her, that she was smart enough to say, listen, despite how I may have felt, the data is showing that it is bearing fruit. We're having positive results. So much so that I like my city being quiet. I like my city not having this drama. So we're going to continue this cooperation because my question was, what happens now when these people pull out? That's always my question. And we'll get into that because the officer had a suggestion and I heard that come up in the press conference as well. But let's just go right to what Donald Trump had to say.
Like, take a look at D.C. Crime was rampant. It was at the all-time worst. It got really bad during the Biden 4 years. And then I have a mayor stand up and say how crime has reached a 30-year low. 30-year low. People are being killed left and right. And it's not a 30-year low. Think of it. So for 11 days, there's been no murders. The record goes back years where that's happened. They haven't seen that happen in years. And then people stand up, and instead of thanking us, which they should do, and she's not that bad. She's better than most. But, you have people I watched in Illinois. Chicago, Illinois is a disaster. I have property there. It's a disaster what's going on in Chicago. And you get Pritzker, he's violating our rights. I think this is another men and women's sports thing. I think this is one of those, they call them 80-20 issues. I call them 97-3. I think the Democrats better get smart. And, politically, I hope they don't. But actually, in terms of love for the country, I hope they do because it would be good to work together.
I actually appreciated him saying that. What I always, what really bothers me? And, if y'all don't know, I'm from the Bahamas. We big on politics in the Bahamas as well, but it's nothing like this. And I think I said this in a video maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. I thought like Bahamians were like crazy when it came to politics. But I'm not going to lie. Over here, it's like off the chain. Like y'all insane. Because I think that if someone is doing something that is yielding results, that is positive, that is helping the citizenry, you give them their props. And I've seen that back home. People can hate you all they want, but they might be like, yeah, I don't like him, but yeah, he's doing a good thing. But over here, I feel like people hate Donald Trump more than they care about their fellow man. It's like opposing Donald Trump is more important than securing the commoners. And what he's saying is correct. Like from a political standpoint, a lot of people would have been like, no, let them eat themselves. Let them eat themselves. And I'll be able to show proof over here that what I did worked and you continue to burn. But if you have a love for this country, if you care about people, you don't want that to happen. You don't want that to happen. Like the folks in Chicago who are literally reporting that they're afraid to come out of their houses, especially if they're in South Side Chicago, and they're saying that they need the help. Like, I want them to have the help. I wish Chicago could just handle it on its own. But if it cannot handle it on its own, bring somebody in, bring these people in to help regulate things and then figure it out moving forward. In Chicago, they had 57 people shot. This was on Labor Day, 7 people killed. And their mayor just seems, I think he's one of the worst mayors I've ever seen in my entire life. He just seems so clueless and so pandering to, it's the way he speaks to and about Black people in particular. It's infantilizing, you know? And I'm offended by that. I'm absolutely offended by that. We're not helpless. We're not helpless. And when you hear Black people saying it's dire here, and I've found that some Black folks could deal with a lot, but if you hear them say it's dire here, we need help, like, you better believe they need some help. Chicago is buck wild. There's no way. And it seems like this happens every time there's like a major holiday or something like that, a Labor Day, like there's a bunch of shootings. Like, what y'all shooting up people for? What y'all doing? I would love to hear that there were no shootings in Chicago for a month. No murders, no nothing, no carjackings. You know how wonderful that would be? So if it took Trump doing this to get these results, then so be it. Let me see here with this officer that I spoke to. Now, I wish I could have interviewed him on camera, but I could not because, you know, I had to do it anonymously. He's not authorized by the MPD to speak to media or social media. And so, you know, we just had to have a conversation. It was a really, really good conversation where he told me a lot about what police officers go through. You know, a lot of them are overworked. A lot of them are underpaid. I think now it was announced during that press conference with Muriel Bowser that they're going to give raises, like it's going to be staggered over the next 3 years, I believe, to police officers. I don't know what they're going to do beyond incentivizing folks to come into the force, because I think they were offering $25,000 as a sign-on bonus. You wouldn't have gotten it all at one time, and of course it would have been taxed, but just as an inducement to get people to join the force, because it's just not attractive. A lot of police officers who are still on the force, you know, they remember what it felt like to stand before the BLM riots, where they were mistreated, spat at, had freaking balloons with urine thrown at them. It was a lot of stuff that they had to deal with. They're dealing with a community that just does not trust them or feel as if they are there to make them safe. I told you my own experience where I went to make a report at the police station, and the cop told me that, you know, preventing crime ain't their job. And by the way, a few of those officers who reached out to me apologized because they said that that was absolutely wrong. And it is definitely their job to protect and prevent crime to an extent. And they apologized for that officer's unprofessionalism. So I really appreciated that. But, you know, when you're trying to seduce or induce people to come to be a police officer, and sorry if you hear a plane flying about over my head, but when you're trying to get people to be police officers, the job has to be attractive. Overworked because you don't have enough cops. I think they're short several hundred, probably like 800 cops. Being overworked and underpaid and being abused by the community is not the business. That's number one. And number two, what these cops have been saying is that, you know, anytime that there is an investigation regarding some alleged wrongdoing by police officers, you know, mishandling of whatever, when they're dealing with members of the public, it's almost as if they don't feel protected by the force. And that protection doesn't mean to cloak them, to cover them if they really did engage in wrongdoing. But if it was like, you know, an investigation was a proper shooting or something like that, they just feel as if they're going to be thrown under the bus by the Metropolitan Police Department. And so that doesn't give people any sort of motivation to want to be in an environment like that. Like if I feel like I always have to cover my backside because this person ain't going to have my back, especially when I did something right or by the book, you're going to get a lot of people to come on board. Let me see one of the things what he mentioned, because when I was talking to him, I said, look, the National Guard is not going to be here very long. They're going to be gone. And so what I would hate is like the minute they pull up out of here for crime to go through the roof again, because it's like, damn, we can't have this permanently. So what happens? So he says, well, the police officers at the Metropolitan Police Department need to have their hands untied. And right now they're tied because of this act. And I heard Muriel Bowser say that they would be willing to take a look at it. What was the name of this damn act? Oh, the officers wanted to repeal the Comprehensive Police Reform Act. Now, that act gives greater transparency to the police department, or makes it so that there is greater transparency. Like, for example, I think you have to release body camera footage, body surveillance footage within a certain time period. If I'm not mistaken, it's like a week after an incident happens. And I think the police officer's name is released to the public. I don't quite like the police officer's name being released to the public, especially if something is under investigation. I like the idea of releasing the footage because we deserve to see it. Especially if it's something extremely, no matter what it is, but if it's controversial, especially, release the footage. But don't put the cop's name out there just yet, because I think it allows them to be condemned by the public before the investigation is complete. It could put their life at risk. There's a lot of things that can happen. But if someone dies in police custody, or, something happens as a shooting, I do want that footage out there. I think that act also gives some guidelines and guidance to those chokeholds that police would put people in. I think it gets rid of that. Let me just read up on that real quick. I saw it and I was supposed to make my notes and I did not. So I apologize for that. Because there were things that the act had that I didn't have an issue with. Let's see here. DC Police Reform Act. So this DC Police Reform Act is aimed at addressing misconduct and bias through measures like restrictions on certain uses of force and increased transparency. However, its implementation faced significant challenges, including a Congressional Review Emergency Amendment Act that sought to block the DC Council's legislation and repeal some of its provisions, leading to further legislative back and forth and ongoing debate about police accountability and officer retention in the district. This act restricted the use of chemical weapons and less lethal projectiles at First Amendment assemblies. It also banned the unlawful use of neck restraints by law enforcement. I don't have an issue with that. The legislation also sought to increase transparency by requiring a report on the use of riot gear at First Amendment assemblies and strengthening accountability measures for police officers. I don't have an issue with that. So I'm curious to know what it is that, what element of this act they want repealed. I'm not reading everything here. I'll link it down below somewhere so you guys can see it. But I think these things are very reasonable. Some of these things that I'm reading here, they seem very reasonable. Listen, I want police's hands untied, but I don't want to give them carte blanche to just hurt people. If you're being arrested for a crime, I want you arrested. I don't want you dying on the spot. I don't want you dying, in the process of being arrested. I want you to face, a judge and potentially a jury. I don't want you dead. So I'm curious to know what elements they would prefer to be done away with. And I would be very careful with that as well. It's a delicate balancing act. You want police to be emboldened to do their jobs properly and do proper policing, but you also don't want to, again, give them so much autonomy, so much authority that they just can go out there and do crazy things to civilians, because that's not good either. So I'm really curious about what they want right there. I think it's just time to focus on these long-term solutions. And again, I am grateful. I can tell you, living here, that I feel so much better. I feel so much better. I'm not even kidding. That the National Guard has been here. It just feels different. It feels quieter. And it's not just my mind. Like it feels quieter. It just feels much healthier and safer. So I'm very grateful for that. Let me just read a few of your comments that you all left in the last video. I'm not going to go through all of them. Just read a few of these. Anyway, let me just start off with some of the low hanging fruit, because some of y'all just would, I don't know what y'all are on. I'm not even going to put it on the screen. This commenter says, "Ma'am, you are only a Washingtonian if you live in Washington State. Furthermore, if you weren't a foreigner, you would know that." I felt so embarrassed for this person. What's this person's name? At VV Park 11. I felt so embarrassed for them. Ain't nothing like when people come into the comment section all bold and wrong. Yes, if you live in the state of Washington, you are called a Washingtonian. And if you were an informed viewer, and if you were smart enough to go and check before you came here and left this comment, you would also know that DC natives are called Washingtonians. DC residents are called Washingtonians. What do you think they call DC-Tonians? What do you think they called? They're Washingtonians. So I felt so embarrassed for you. So I think I even said that. I said, wow, I feel so ashamed for you. DC natives are called Washingtonians too. Do your research before trying to come for me. Signed, an informed foreigner. And I put my Bahamian flag behind that. People so funny. Let me read this next comment from Lisa Curtis. Says, I believe we may be in different ends of the political divide, but I believe you speak facts when you talk about the police need to listen to the community if they then expect the community to assist in investigations. Building trust is a two-way street. It also means listening to our peers and being respectful and able to say, I understand what you're saying. Your points are valid, even if you disagree. I 100% agree with you on that, Lisa. Sadly, that is what is missing and has pushed far left and right fringes to become mainstream and sadly the norm. I believe the statistics on DC crime are altered because many juveniles are committing them and they are probably being sent through family court instead of criminal court. And either way, a slap on the wrist is becoming standard, thus emboldening those who use their kids to do their dirty work and the kids who realize there's no consequences for their actions. Stay safe and thank you for raising many very valid points and sharing your personal experiences. I agree with you. And that's one of the things, thank you so much, by the way, Lisa. That's one of the things that the police officer was saying too. Like a lot of these juveniles are like out of control. And I feel like we are developing criminals when we don't curb these behaviors quickly. When we don't curb these behaviors quickly, we are emboldening them to go on to even further crimes. Oh, I got away with this. I could do this. I got away with this. I could do that. No, you got to shut it down. Y'all don't want me in charge. I'm a little extreme when it comes to crime. Having been a victim of crime, having had family members who were murdered, I'm very extreme. I believe in capital punishment. Let me just start with that. 100%. Like, eye for an eye. You don't get to take someone's family member away from them and then just go to jail. Now, the only caveat is I need to be 100% sure that you did it. If there's any uncertainty in my mind that you did this, then no, absolutely not. Then you just go to jail. I wouldn't like give you the chair or, hang you or anything like that. I wouldn't do that. You can't blow breath back into someone once you've taken their life. That's it. So I don't want to make a mistake. But if I know 100%, if I'm 100% sure that you did this crime, to the gallows you go. So all y'all people who talking about, you should consider politics. I have zero interest in politics. Zero. And y'all wouldn't elect me anyway. Because I ain't telling you what you want here. Huh? Let's start with that. Y'all be like, I'll never elect this girl. She's a psycho. Let me see what else we got here. Mr. Hammer 2088 says, unless the National Guard is a permanent fixture, this is all for show, optics, so that Trump can beat his cheat? Sorry. I think he's trying to say chest. So that Trump can beat his chest later saying, look what I did when I was president and I'm sorry, there's some typos here, but it don't matter. But no one has done better. So what? I'd beat my chest too. I would beat my chest too. If I had a city that was overrun with crime and nobody could fix the situation and I came in and despite what y'all said, I said, no, I'm moving ahead with this to make the citizenry safe. And I was the only one who could do it. Let him beat his chest. I don't have no issue with that. Like, what? As soon as the guards leave, it will be back to business as usual. It's a well-known narrative amongst the blue wall that they're not for preventing crime, but for solving them. I'll even go as far as saying that they incite many of crimes. Job security, after all. More than 50% of police officers in many of our black neighborhoods are whites who don't have an incentive for betterment in those communities. If all crime cease, they will be out of work. Okay. Well, thank you for your comment. What else is there? Who's this? Dale Montgomery 1202 says, first time watching you. I like your calm, reasonable take on the situation. I agree with much of what you say. And yes, Trump a lot of times is way too hyperbolic. He's not as bad as his first term, but he still needs to tone down his rhetoric. I agree. They have done more to that man than any other president. In my opinion, I like the way you talked with reasoning. We could use more people like you talking about this situation. Thank you for your channel. Thank you so much, Dale Montgomery. Sorry, I first of all, I'm wearing my contacts today. Please forgive me. When I wear my contacts, I can't see up close. But without my contacts, I see great up close. But I see horribly from far. So just bear with me, okay? Bear with me, okay? I'm going to do this last one. I don't want this video to be too long. This one's from Tia0721, says, Rogan, I'm a huge supporter and have been following you for a while. I know you wanted to hear from Washington residents, but even as a lifelong Angelino from LA, I feel I have something important to add. Okay, let me just address that really quickly. I said in my video that I don't want to hear from, don't take that. Let me explain. When I said I don't want to hear from other people, and I don't think I said it like that. I always want to hear from everyone, whether you agree with me or not. I've said that from the time I started my channel. I've always said, I don't want this to become an echo chamber where everybody just always agrees with me. If you agree with me, you agree with me. But if you disagree, like, feel free to disagree. And of course, I want to hear from other people from different cities and states. That's not an issue. What I was saying is individuals who don't live here, who this is not their daily reality, coming into the comment section and saying, crime isn't bad. Y'all exaggerating. That bothers me. That's what bothers me. Because you don't live here. You don't understand the dynamics. You don't understand anything about it. This is not your daily reality. So it's like, I don't want to hear from you folks who don't live here, who aren't on the ground, who aren't victims of crime, that's what I'm talking about. Not because you live in another city. I don't want to hear from, no. So let me just clarify that. Anyway, Tia says, I live in one of the most expensive zip codes in the U.S., if not at least in California. Yet the homeless epidemic here is out of control and unsafe. Tent City takes on a whole new meaning in L.A. I know because I went to California and I was like, damn. Just a side note, my friend and I went to California. We were there for her birthday. Were we there for her birthday? Yeah, because it was April. We were there for her birthday. And we were so naive. We were inside of like our Uber. And I thought, because my view of California was shaped by Hollywood. So when we were like driving through the city of Los Angeles, I thought they were having like, what you call those things, man? Where they be selling stuff outside, like garage sales and stuff like that. Because people were like, I just saw these little tents and stuff. I was like, oh, this is so cute. I said, all these people selling stuff like, and I was just like in my head saying, boy, they getting it out in California, boy. Everybody out here selling their stuff. And I'll never forget the man who was driving us. The Uber driver looked inside the rearview mirror and he said, what? He said, they're homeless. And me and my friend looked at each other and we were like, homeless? Then we looked outside and we were like, what? Because I don't know. It was so many of them. I thought it was like a swap meet. That's what I thought. It was like a swap meet something. I was like, these people homeless? Boy, y'all buck wild in LA, boy. Boy, y'all buck wild in LA. Anyway, she says, Tent City takes on a whole new meaning in LA. Many of the homeless are violent, mentally unstable, unsanitary, and battling addiction. Yup. Growing up, places like Sunset, Venice, the Santa Monica Promenade, and even Malibu were safe and fun hangouts. Oh, today it's a completely different story. You're literally putting yourself at risk just by being there day or night. Even when I temporarily relocated to Sacramento for work, I saw the same issue. The state capital itself is horrendous with homelessness and violence. I'm glad something is finally being attempted, and I just hope for real change. So do I. I really hope. I always say, and I think I said this to somebody in the comment section, I said, boy, if I had money like that, if I really had money, like some really, like I mean this, y'all. I know y'all don't know me. The people who know me know I'm being so real with this. Like if you see when I play this lotto now, this is my pledge. Like, I'm going to create some sort of foundation that is going to, this when I win my $1.3 billion lotto in the Powerball, I want to create some sort of foundation whose job it is to build affordable housing that people will move into for free. It'll be super affordable because it'll be free, right? But not for the long term. Like, you can stay there for 2 years, and then like a part of my plan is to have like detoxing programs and all these different things. I don't even know how I'm going to do it. I just need God to bless me with the money so I could do this, right? Because you want to get people who are on drugs, like, get that out of their system, but give them somewhere to live for like 2 years. I would do this here in DC. I would do it in California. I would do it in